Today's episode is brought to you by our local sponsors, Ravenwood Incense and Fragrance Producers, Betsy Cornell, licensed massage therapist, and Courtney Wiggins, social justice activist seeking equality for all. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome to Ask a Witch, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. Join our host as she discusses various aspects of witchcraft and spirituality with intellectual and authentic members of the metaphysical community. This podcast is made possible by Blessed Bee Tea and Apothecary, a one-stop witch shop nestled in downtown Traverse City, Michigan. And now your host, the bewitching Bellamy Black.
Hello, and welcome to Ask a Witch. I'm Bellamy Black. In this podcast, we answer a variety of questions sent in by listeners like you. So thank you for sending in your letters. With me today is Chelsea. Chelsea is a teaching artist, an artist that is a teacher, and we really appreciate you.
Thanks.
Chelsea is also one of our Dead Poets. So we have Dead Poet Society, which is open mic style poetry reading. We do it once a month, every second Saturday of the month. We just stay open late and read poetry for an hour. It's a free event. Everybody's welcome to come, and it's beautiful.
And it's great, yeah. I'm happy to be part of it and love sharing the written word.
Yes, because words are powerful.
Words are powerful.
Yeah, and that's the basis of our listener letter
That's why
today.
we're here today.
Yeah, so we're really excited about that. Before we get into that, let's talk about the tea that we're drinking.
It's delicious.
So today we are drinking tummy tea. Tummy tea is one of my top sellers for sure because people got issues, all kinds of issues. It's a peppermint base with marshmallow root, echinacea, rosehip, chamomile, oregano, clove, and star anise. So back in the day, if somebody got an upset stomach, somebody would just give them a chunk of marshmallow root to chew on.
Huh.
So it's our the second main ingredient in this tea, and so there's quite a bit of content of that. It's a little bit sweet, but also a little bit earthy. It's not exactly marshmallow flavored per se.
It's nice and minty.
Yeah. So mint is definitely one of the major components in it. Mint is known for centuries to help with nausea. Echinacea is in there to help kind of like help start healing and boosting your immune system, as well as the rosehip in there. Rosehip actually has more vitamin C than an orange does. There's chamomile in there, which can be very calming for you personally, as well as for calming your upset stomach. Oregano, clove, and star anise are also really good for like settling that upset stomach. So this is one that I have in my shelf probably all of the time.
Yeah.
It's great for if you are like sick and you're nauseous, but it's also good if you get like
anxious.
Nervous tummy. Yeah.
I think that's good. That's a good choice for today.
Yeah, I think so too.
My tummy gets nervous.
Mine too. I will share like an anecdote that I have a gentleman that comes in and buys like 30 bags of it at a time. Wow. He has had multiple, and not that I'm claiming that this is like the cure-all, be-all.
This is not a doctor.
Please consult your physician. I am not a doctor. But he has seen multiple physicians about having gastrointestinal issues, and he swears by this tea. He sends people in to like buy this tea all the time. I love it.
That's magical.
Yeah, it is magical. So I love seeing the tea work. I love seeing the magic work, and the fact that even just one person has received relief from this tea is fantastic.
Yeah, I've had lots of good magical moments with your teas, so
me too.
I love it.
But that's always good to hear.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, my kids love it.
That's great.
Yeah. So anytime I can get them to do something medicinal
kid
that's
tested.
and mother approved.
Mother approved.
Parent approved.
Grown up approved.
Grown up approved. So, all right. Well, Chelsea, I can't wait to talk with you. But first, I think we have a listener letter.
My lady, a message has arrived for you.
Do you find yourself craving more connection? Are you wanting to experience more emotional, physical, and spiritual intimacy with others? Or maybe you're longing for a better relationship with your own body and soul and unique purpose in this life. Belonging looks different for everyone, but the paths we take to get there, the path where we feel welcome and wanted in the world is very similar. Katie May is a guide in the art of belonging, and she has been guiding people along those paths for years through workshops, retreats, and one-on-one couples counseling. You can join her at Blessed Be for the Art of Belonging on Saturday, June 29th. On Saturday, July 27th, she'll be hosting Coco Relating, where she'll be sharing how to create more conscious, organic, committed, and open relationships. And on Wednesday, August 28th, for Blowjoy, where she'll show you how to take more pleasure in connecting with your partner and improve emotional and physical intimacy in your relationships. You can also check out her website for some free resources, coaching opportunities, and to keep up on the latest offerings at www.katiemazing.com. That's KATIEMAEZING.com, Katie Mazing. Can't make these classes? Check out blessedbt.com for more options. All right, so here's our listener letter. Dear Bellamy, I am a writer/author and witchcraft enthusiast. While I appreciate the lifestyle of witchcraft, I do not myself practice. However, I have a vision of writing a YA, or young adult fictional story, about a young witchling. I wanted to ask a witch what your perspectives are on witches in literature and pop culture. Have Hollywood and book series portrayals helped or harmed the witchcraft community? Any insight will help guide my character development. With love, typing in Traverse City. Cute. I love it.
So cute.
People are getting really clever with their sign-off names.
I love that.
I do too.
I also feel like this person is just a witch in waiting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel like this is how we all start.
yeah. So I will say that I feel like there's in the old, practical magic, phrasing of
There's a witch in all of us.
There's a little bit of witch in all of us. Yeah, really. So I think I was actually just talking to somebody about this, about how witchcraft is a practice. It's a craft.
Yes.
It's like being in so many words, it's like being a blacksmith or like a butcher, right? It's like something
an artist, musician.
You work at, you add into your lifestyle. It's a lifestyle practice.
Yes.
And so you can have witchcraft in addition to or alongside any other practice.
That is true.
Including Christianity, including, it's just a mindfulness practice that you add into your practice.
Absolutely.
And add into your everyday activities.
And there's so many facets of it that you can, work into your life.
Yes, absolutely. So typing in Traverse City, you're, a witch in waiting. We're predicting it right here. Okay, well, before we get into this topic, Chelsea, will you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I
maybe
will.
Some of your spiritual background and how you got to the couch today.
So I was also once a witch in waiting. I grew up, evangelical, grew up in the church, but also always believed in magic and was always, communicating with the fairies in my backyard and, playing make-believe and believing in the make-believe and believing in fairy tales. And so for me, I think that was sort of my entrance into the craft, as it were, but also that was, shut down for a long time by being raised in the church and in really traditional beliefs. But as I got older and started, defining my own spirituality for myself, I learned more about witchcraft through books mostly at first, and then friends and people in the community and people that, practiced in different ways. And that was the start of my own practice. Became part of a community, mostly online during the pandemic, that really guided some of my own practice and helped me to find sort of the things that worked for me. So I do a lot with astrology, work with the moon, different herbs, and then just different practices that I bring into my day-to-day life. And now here I am. But yeah, I think for me, the biggest kind of defining things about myself, I'm a storyteller at heart, and I love incorporating magic into, or creative practice into my witchcraft and my magic. And that's sort of what brought me here today. Is I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, I'm a poet, as we already discussed, and that is what brought me here.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that it goes unspoken that fairy tales are such they're such a stepping stone into the world of magic. And there's reasons why, these fairy tales have been around for centuries and centuries because they teach lessons and they teach stories. There's like Aesop's fables and like there's parables and there's different
Grimm's fairy tales. There's mythology. There's so
much
many
to
things.
learn there.
And it's so much of it is how humans explain different, when you think about mythology especially, but even in fairy tales, like explaining different phenomena that we don't understand, or teaching children certain lessons through parables and through fables and fairy tales. And but the incorporation of magic is always such an interesting part of those stories.
Yeah, I think it also helps us like retain those lessons in those stories because we remember
the magic.
Yeah, we remember the magic and we remember the lessons in the stories. Like, because the story sticks with us, and so therefore the lesson sticks with us.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so typing in Traverse City, I wanted to start by, first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very pleased to have you.
Excited.
I'm going to cheers you.
Cheers. Cheers.
Yes. So I want to start by saying that I love that even though you don't identify as a witch, you want to write a story about a witch.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Absolutely.
I taught a class on this topic at one point in my career, and one of the biggest concerns of the people in my class, the other students in the class, was that they didn't want to present a witch in a way that wasn't appropriate.
Right. Stereotyping or just all of... And I feel like this has become not even just with witches, but with all kinds of different representation. People have gotten a lot more sensitive to representing all kinds of different people appropriately.
Yes.
And that's a good thing.
Yes.
We want to be kind and
absolutely
not be offensive and not stereotype.
Yep. So thinking the fact that they came and asked is a huge step in general. But do I want them to censor their work and not write an evil witch or not write does it, that's not the case. And in fact, in writing and in storytelling, what I've come to understand is that the villain is really your main character.
Yeah.
You have a protagonist, sure, but your villain is really what drives that story and really makes it fantastic.
Yeah.
So if your villain is a witch, then you better make her badass.
You make her really cool.
You got to make her really cool.
Yes.
Tim Curry is one of my favorite actors of all time.
Yes.
And he was like, I never want to be the good guy in the movie. I never want to voice the good guy because what fun is that? That's not fun. I always want to be the bad guy.
Yes.
And he's such a good bad guy.
He's the best bad guy.
I love it. So, on one hand, it's like, okay, it's literature, it's fiction, it's fun, it's making a point, you're driving home, a story or some kind of lesson. If the witch is the bad guy, that's fine. That's okay.
Make it worth it. Earn it. Earn it.
Yes.
Earn the witch
Thank you.
being the bad guy.
That being said, negative portrayals of witches in literature and Hollywood have had a huge impact on the world of witchcraft today and how witches are portrayed today. So the Oxford English Dictionary defines a witch as a woman who is believed to have magic powers, especially to do evil things. In stories, she usually wears a black pointed hat and flies on a broomstick. A. Many people believed her to be a witch. B. She sat astride a broomstick just like a witch in a fairy tale. C. I have a pointy hat for my Halloween witch costume.
I left my pointy hat at home.
I do too. I usually never wear one, actually. So the Oxford English Dictionary
says that witches are evil.
It says that witches are evil and also makes them to be fairy tale characters and Halloween costumes and women.
Always women.
Always women.
Witches can be men.
Witches are men
Fun
too.
fact.
And all genders.
All
really.
genders.
So
no gender binary.
It is appalling to me that this is still the definition in the Oxford English Dictionary, who adds in a new word every year with things like yeet.
Maybe we could update that.
Yeah, maybe we could update that.
That would be cool.
So this is my call to action.
Dear
we
Oxford.
are signing a petition Let's do this.
Let's
like
do
this
it.
is going to happen. So we'll put a petition in the show notes here. We want to change the Oxford English Dictionary definition of a witch away from whatever it is, and we will write a new definition and or give us your suggestions on what you would like the definition of a
My
witch.
favorite one is the like acronym of a woman in total control of herself. Not that all witches have to be women, again, but maybe just a person in total control of themselves.
Yes.
And in control of their own power and in touch with their own power.
Yeah.
There
beautiful.
it is. Boom, baby.
There you go.
Oxford English Dictionary.
Yeah, come on. What is your definition of a witch? Please leave that in the comments and message us with what that is because we want to hear it.
I want to hear it.
So that's my fact.
I love that fact.
Which is a terrible fact.
I don't love that fact, but I love that you shared that fact. Thank you for sharing.
But then I also want to share this fact about, well, it's actually a fact about fiction, with The Wizard of Oz. So Frank L. Baum wrote The Wizard of Oz in 1900, just straight up millennium year.
Yeah.
1900. And so what a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Right? Or it's not a millennium year though, is it?
No,
Century.
year.
Now I sound like an idiot.
No, you're doing
the
great.
Century year. So like 1900 on the
Turn of
dot.
the century.
Yeah, turn of the century. So Frank L. Baum wrote this book. He was inspired greatly by his mother and his wife. And his mother and his wife were all a part of the Golden Dawn Society.
Cool.
Yeah, super cool. So there's lots of like points in the Wizard of Oz story that allude to the Golden Dawn Society, like the Golden Road.
The Yellow Brick Road,
The Yellow Brick Road.
Apparently also potentially has connections to Traverse City and the asylum. I've heard weird little like
I have heard that too.
rumors about that.
Yeah, look it up.
Yeah,
Tell us
look it
about
up.
it. Yeah.
I want to know more.
I want to know more. I've heard that too. It's fascinating.
It's cool.
Yeah. So, but the other thing that Frank L. Baum did with The Wizard of Oz is he introduced for the first time, really, a good witch
Into the good witch.
to literature. So we all know about the bad witch. We all know about the, the Baba Yagas and the
The witches in Macbeth.
Yes.
So many witches.
Yep. So
The witches from stories of the witch trials,
Yep.
the witch hunts.
Yes. But here we go. Frank L. Baum, he's like, actually, there's a duality to the world.
to him.
And there's dark energy, but there's also light energy. And, let's focus on the light energy.
In a children's story.
In a children's story.
Not even in like a story necessarily just for grown-ups, but in a
beautiful.
children's story. It's so good.
Yes. So that's my little fact about fiction, too, is that Frank L. Baum is out here praising witches,
Being
good
like,
and bad.
Witches are great. Witches are also sometimes bad.
Yes.
But the world has a lot of
And that's
duality,
okay.
and that's great. And we love that.
So the other thing I'll say about Wizard of Oz, there's an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood that I love. So I love Mr. Rogers.
I love Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
So wholesome.
I Will Be Your Neighbor. So this aired in 1975, and there's an episode with Margaret Hamilton who played the Wicked Witch of the West.
Okay.
And he sits down and he talks to her about being a witch
I think I've seen
and what it
this.
looks like. It's the coolest episode ever. And she gets on there and she's like, it was really hard to play this role. Like, it's hard for me to be the bad guy in this. But what she says is she's like, I loved thinking about something from somebody else's perspective. I love putting myself in the shoes of this person who isn't Glinda the Pretty Witch, right? Doesn't look the best, had a sister who always got the attention.
Yes.
And, and here I am never getting anything that I ever want, even though I'm trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. And I'm just getting shit on every day. She's like, I just want, she's like, I had to embody that person. And that person is sad. And that person is angry. And that person is reacting in this way. And Mr. Rogers was like, oh, I think we could all relate to that.
Yeah.
When we
just
all
making her
have
a
feelings and emotions.
sympathetic character.
Yeah, that's exactly what she is. And so, and then he's like, but you look really scary. And she goes, yes, I know, but it's just a costume. And then she proceeds to teach him about costuming and makeup and all these things, which another fun fact, witches were never green.
Yeah. Why did they make her green?
So they made her green because Technicolor had just come out.
Ah, yes.
And so the green really popped on screen.
Yeah, because I don't think she's green in the book.
No, she's not.
She's green in the movie.
She's green in the movie. And so MGM was like, make her green. And so, and then unfortunately the paint that they used on her and the Tin Men both had lead in
yeah.
them, and they were terrible for these people. So poor
Yeah.
Margaret Hamilton and the Tin Man, who I don't know who the actor
I
is,
don't
but
remember his name.
but yeah, so that's a really awesome episode of Mr. Rogers. So if you're looking into kind of like different perspectives, look at that.
Yeah, ask the internet about Margaret Hamilton.
I have this fact here too, which is really awesome. Glinda, who was played by Billy Burke, was 44 years old and is the Good Witch.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yes!
And then Margaret Hamilton, who was the Wicked Witch, was 24. And I wrote, "Who's the hag now?" So MGM did that too. They made it where the older woman is the good, positive role.
She's like the matronly, like the motherly nurturer.
Crone.
Crone. The
Yeah,
crone.
the
exactly.
wise crone.
The wise crone.
Yes.
The nurturer.
Go crones. We love crones.
We love a crone.
We love a crone. You've earned your croneness.
Yes. I know we said we were going to not talk too much about The Wizard of Oz, but I also love Wicked, The Untold Story of the Wicked Witch of the West. There's the Gregory Maguire book, and there's also the musical, which is my favorite. But I think, again, getting into the Wicked Witch as a sympathetic character and the motivations behind her actions is a really interesting way to look at any villain. That's what circles back to what we were talking about with villains. Thinking about the motivations behind their actions is the sort of key to writing a good villain and to writing a sympathetic villain. If you want them to be a sympathetic villain.
Absolutely. They have to have a backstory. They have to have like reason why.
Right. Like they can't just like wake up one day, fly off the handle just cuz.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I actually made note here as well, but like we call anybody who really wants something a witch. So Glinda wants everybody to be happy and get everything that they need. She's a witch. Dorothy wants to get home. Witch.
Yeah, they call her a little witch too.
Yeah, they do. So, and we do that in general, like in, and we say that all the time for,
right,
like, that woman's such a witch.
Yeah, ambitious women, know,
she's
especially.
A witch.
What a witch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, kind of changing that dialogue.
Yeah.
And that terminology. Real quick, you mentioned Macbeth. So I want to talk about Macbeth real quick. So 1606, Shakespeare wrote Macbeth. He has the Weird Sisters.
The Weird Sisters.
Love the Weird Sisters.
They're so great.
This is where we get our double toilet trouble. Like this is like so Shakespeare created these weird women, right? But there's a lot of history behind weird, not W-E-I-R-D.
W-Y-R-D.
W-Y-R-D.
Yes.
Yes. Which is actually from Germanic tribes. It's from Vikings. And weird just means like unexplored or different and like also powerful. Yeah. So Shakespeare like kind of like we've translated it, we translated into weird as in you're weird
as in
and
like
you're strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfamiliar to me.
But Shakespeare, like he wrote that word W-Y-R-D for a reason.
Right. There's power infused in it
There's definitely power.
And agency.
Yes. Yes, for sure. So that's my little note about that. And then I also want to talk about the Malleus Maleficarum.
Ooh, I don't know this one.
So the Malleus Maleficarum is also, it was written in 1486. It's known as the Hammer of Witches.
Okay.
And this is the document, this is the doctrine that every judge had on their stand right next to their Bible during all of the inquisitions and witch trials.
Okay.
So it was written by a man, I can't remember his name, but it was just one guy. It was just one guy that wrote it. And he put in there all the different ways to know or tell if somebody was a witch, including if they had a devil's teat.
Extra nipple.
Extra nipple, which could also be a weird mole, a skin tag.
Which, is that why witches have moles on their faces in
movies and stuff? Yes.
Because they had weird nipples.
So, and the idea behind that was what he said in this book is that the witches would use this third nipple to feed their familiars, which were animal companions sent from the devil to do their dirty work. This is all made up. It's all fabricated.
It's all weird.
It's all made up. It's all weird.
It's all weird. It's just
but
why.
They also had there was like this, like if you stuck a witch with a needle
The pin, yes.
and she bled, then she's not a witch. And if
witch.
she doesn't bleed, then she's a witch.
And they would use, they could use like retractable, like they had all kinds of
Pins.
different tricks, retractable
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's
pins.
so
Yeah.
many ways to fake it.
Yep.
So many ways to fake it. One of my favorite techniques was, let's throw her into a pool.
Yes.
And if she drowns,
If she drowns, she's not
a witch. And
But
God
she's
rest her soul.
Still dead.
But she's still dead. And if she saves herself, then she must be a witch.
Burn her.
She was saved by the devil. Yeah.
This always reminds me of the
Monty Python.
Monty Python skit. We found a witch. May we burn her?
I'm not a witch. I love it. Yeah. But
again, perceptions in media.
Yeah. So they took information from the Malleus Maleficarum and they put satire to it and they made a joke about it. You know, and like, what is the actual witch in that? Like, she's like beautiful.
Yes.
Right? They put a nose on her, 'cause, like a false nose. 'cause
Yes.
she has to look like a witch.
Yeah, and there's just the warts and everything.
hilarious.
And she's like, I'm not. What are you talking
I'm
about?
not a witch.
I'm not a witch.
On Mackinac Island, there is a place called the Drowning Pool.
Was it where they drowned?
Witches.
No way.
Yes. But they were really just prostitutes from the brothel I think the brothel was called a bucket of nails or something, a bucket of blood. It was like really gruesome. And it was like a bar brothel on Mackinac Island.
Aggressive name.
It is. But there was prostitutes working in this brothel and they classified them as witches. And they took them all to the drowning pool and threw them in one after another. And again, if they drowned, then they weren't witches.
God rest their
And
souls.
I'm so sorry. Right? But if they did, like, if they saved themselves, so, like, this is a place where I could take you there.
I would like to go there. I'm fascinated. I would
Right
like to, like,
right outside Mission Point Resort.
feel the energy of this place.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah, it sounds. Yeah.
For sure.
There's a lot of rage there, I'm sure.
Yeah. And Mackinac Island itself, and I want to do, we're going to have an episode coming up where I talk about ghosts. I'm really excited about. But the island is made out of limestone, which is a conduit for energy. And so there's tons and so much history and pain, so much pain and so much, the indigenous treatment on that island is just atrocious. And so there's a lot of excess energy there that just doesn't have anywhere else to go. And you can really, really sense it. Ghost hunters have been there and like all kinds of things. It's pretty intense. Anyway. So the Malleus Maleficarum was on every judge's court bench, every single one. And so they would consult that for every time there was any kind of trial with a witch. And this is male or female.
Right.
There's certain like countries, like Switzerland actually had more men executed for witchcraft than anywhere else.
Interesting.
Like there's tons of places that executed men just as much as they executed women. And the majority of it was really just political or I don't like her or he stole my cow or whatever. Like it's just petty bullshit.
It's just not anything to do with actually being a witch.
Yeah. And so the Malleus Maleficarum comes out and it goes, oh, that person's got a weird nipple. We're going to kill him.
Get him out of here.
Get him out of here.
You and your
They're
weird
a witch.
nipples.
Scram. Kick it. Kick rocks. So that piece of literature, which is fiction, which is an intense piece of fiction, really changed our entire world. And was
and shaped
the basis
so
of
much.
genocide.
Yeah.
All over. Right. The United States, Europe, England, like
so many places.
Yeah. Scandinavia, like everybody died.
All over Europe.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, dude.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Church.
So the Malleus Maleficarum is a big piece of literature that really, really shaped our world. And again, that's called the Hammer of Witches. So fascinating. But and then we have in like 1953, Arthur Miller writes a book called The Crucible.
The Crucible.
Yeah.
Which is really about McCarthyism.
It is. It's a Red Scare.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's really a political move.
Yes.
But let's use the Salem witch trials.
Allegory of the witch trials. Yes. It's a fascinating play.
It is.
It is, and I've seen it performed a couple of different times, and I've read it. I was a theater major for a while in college, and had to read it and analyze it. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff to analyze in there. But again, misconceptions about the witch trials and so many other like problematic things in there as well, but great piece of literature.
Yeah. So it's just fascinating how they took this allegory in the story of the Salem witch trials and made it a political movement,
Right.
To re-scare us. Well, it's 1953 is when like it really got popular, and that's when they used it as the political movement. So this is like the 50s are like, if you're communist, like you commie scum, we're not gonna.
Yeah, and there was blacklisting from jobs and so many other like horrible ramifications for your life if you were deemed a communist. It's crazy. What McCarthyism, the stain of McCarthyism on this country. We could do a whole other episode about that as well.
For sure. So that's just like, that's fascinating. Yeah. Also, the whole story is about sex.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
So that's like putting sex and witchcraft hand in hand.
Yes. And there's the, Abigail, who is the pretty young thing that seduces the minister.
John Proctor.
Yeah. And then his good wife, Goody Proctor.
Literally Goody Proctor.
Literally Goody Proctor, they call her, because that was what they called all the good married women was Goody whoever. But yeah, it's a fascinating allegory, but also just, again, shaping our perceptions about witchcraft.
And women.
And, the first one accused in the play is a slave named Tituba. And again, getting into perceptions of women of color and things of that nature as well. Like there's so much complexity that goes into this. But yeah, it's a great play.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It definitely is.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing to kind of pick apart and see, how it has shaped perceptions of different things.
Yeah. Skip the Demi Moore movie.
Yeah.
That one's not great.
It's not great.
There's one with Winona Ryder. That one's better. Mm-hmm. But skip the Demi Moore one. It's not going to help you pass any tests in school either. Because it's all about sex. They just really
make it sexy.
Nailed it about the sexy part for sure.
Yeah.
So the Crucible. And then they even so at Salem, at the Witch Museum in Salem, they have a whole section about the Crucible and the Red Scare and what it did for everybody and stuff. So they're even talking about it in Salem, and why wouldn't they?
Right.
But and then I'm gonna skip Matilda because we'll come back to that. But let's talk about Harry Potter real quick.
Ooh, okay.
So Harry Potter came out in 1997. Can you believe it?
That is wild.
Can you believe it?
That is wild.
1997.
So I was one of those, evangelical kids that thought Harry Potter was from the devil, and did not read it until I was in college.
Mm-hmm. My dad went back and forth. He's like, she can't read it, she can read it.
Yeah, and it was, there's been some debate between my parents and I of whether they were the ones who said I couldn't read it or if I decided I wasn't going to read it because it was bad. And so, there's been some debate. But yeah, I did not have the experience of a lot of my contemporaries and friends of reading that book as a kid. But I did read them in college, and I took a whole class on Harry Potter in college, which was fun.
I love that was an option.
Yeah, it was great. But there's so much complexity in that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot that's been unsurfaced in the last few years, too. I know a lot of...
transphobia and...
Yeah, J.K. Rowling's, personal perspectives...
Problematic individual.
...have been very harming for the Harry Potter franchise.
Yes, absolutely. But if we, kick it back to 1997, just from a children's literacy standpoint, Harry Potter in a lot of ways is credited with getting kids to want to read again.
Yeah.
Because it was such an impactful, interesting story. There were the midnight releases of books and these huge, bookstore openings and things. And then they brought in the theme park and LeakyCon, I think is what it was called, the convention that they would have. And the Harry Potter musicals, and there's so many things that have happened over the years around this sort of zeitgeist of Harry Potter.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that J.K. Rowling does well, and some might argue this, there's a lot of purists out there. So
there's a lot of arguments.
I will say that it's fine. You can leave a comment, and I'm happy to respond.
We will discuss this further in the comments.
So what J.K. Rowling does well is creates an entire world.
Yes, there's some really excellent world building.
It's like Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's an entire world,
yes.
right? And so where we had, like, in the 70s, you know, like, this release of Star Wars, and this whole
Wars,
world
right.
where people waited and needed to be a part of that, which is a movie, I get. But this did the same thing for kids, where I was just like, I can transport myself entirely into this other world, and I understand how things work. I understand how the magic works there.
Right.
When you say a car can fly, I say, of course a car can fly.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like, it's like, yes. It
and
just
it
made
also,
perfect sense.
it wasn't a complete, in some ways it was a separate world. You know, you had to go to Hogwarts, but then you get into, like, the Muggleborns. You know, I could be a magical person.
Yes.
I could be, you know, it's the kind of start of the whole Chosen One thing that has become such a big deal in literature since then. Not necessarily, there are other Chosen One stories, but I feel like, especially in literature for young people, both, you know, children's literature and young adult literature, that was sort of the beginning of the, like, Chosen One story.
Yeah.
And so giving kids that fantasy of, oh, when am I going to get my Hogwarts letter? I know so many kids who have had, you know, their birthday, their 11th birthday has been a Harry Potter birthday, and they get their parents do the pretend Hogwarts letter, and you know, it's you get the picture with the platform 9 3/4 sign and all of the things, and it's just the juxtaposition with, you know, the story starting in the real world is such a huge thing for kids of having better access to that. It's just like Narnia. Like, Narnia starts, you know, going through the wardrobe.
Yep.
And that Alice in Wonderland, you know, there's so many different magical stories that, you know, are grounded in the real world, and then you get to go to the fantasy world. And I think that is a huge part of how these stories have become such a part of our culture and our history, are those stories that start in the real world and then become magical.
Yeah, it's almost escapism.
Yes.
So it's escapism into the magical world.
Yes.
But you get to be a part of escapism by reading a book.
Yes.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that they do really well is it grows with you.
Yeah.
And so as the books were coming out, you were 8, 9, 10 years old when you first picked up this book. And then the next book came out, and the characters in the book,
They mature.
just as you're maturing.
Yeah, and they go through puberty, basically.
Puberty.
They get so moody.
Yeah, and the movies are the same way.
Yeah.
You know, you see Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, like, just like, and what's his face?
Rupert Grint.
Thank you. Just like growing and growing and growing and maturing, and then you can have this, like, you see yourself in these characters as they grow and as they mature and as they start dealing with darker
the themes get a lot darker. In the later books. I have, again, you know, kids now and kids that I've taught where parents have said, yeah, we've read up through book 3 or book 4, and we have to wait a few more years before we're comfortable reading 5, 6, and 7 because
they get scary.
A lot of bad things happen.
Yeah. And it's harder to process and it's harder to deal with.
Absolutely.
You know, especially with, like, you can't just sit down and do a Harry Potter marathon with, like, a 10-year-old.
No. Things get real traumatic
real quick. Yeah. It's a lot to keep up with. Yeah. But yeah, my daughter, we're on book 4, and that's where we're at for right now.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? Yeah, so I think that the other thing that Harry Potter did for the world of witchcraft is that it put terminology into people's hands that was wands and spells and magic and manifest. And we're going to, like, how do I do this? And, like, talking about things like mandrake root.
Yes.
And, like, so.
Which I did not know was a real thing.
It's a real thing. I sell it in the shop.
I know. It took me several years to be like, oh, wait, that's not a made up plant? Like, wild.
So there's like,
found it growing in the woods.
There's made up stuff that J.K. Rowling had, but she also added in a lot of, like, I really love Tilda Swinton as the diviner. You know, so, first of all, I love Tilda Swinton. I love Tilda Swinton. David Bowie adjacent.
Yes.
Because I will always mention David Bowie when I can. So David Bowie and Tilda Swinton together, look it up. And then. But she's like, so her predictions, she does tea leaf reading, she uses divination, crystal ball reading, tarot card reading, all that stuff is there's real practice out there for all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Like, that would be my first class.
Yeah, I would
I would
have
have
loved
loved
to
that
take
class.
divination. Also, the fact that, like, her whole story is just her arc is fascinating of, like, she made this prophecy and nobody believed her and everybody thought she was a, like, crackpot and none of her divination worked, and, like, surprise, actually
Discrimination even in the world of witchcraft.
Fascinating. But surprise, it turns out all of her prophecies are super accurate.
And she's not a crazy woman.
She's not a crazy person.
She's a witch.
She's just a witch.
Yeah, so I think that there is some information in there that can be evolved into like your knowledge base could have evolved from Harry Potter into
it's
being like, oh, this is
bridge for
this makes
curiosity.
sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's taken a lot as a practicing witch to be like, no, not what I do isn't Harry Potter.
I cannot just, like,
I don't shoot lightning bolts from my fingertips.
Yeah, that
it
sounds
doesn't
fun,
happen.
no.
Yeah.
I
So
can't just
it's-
wave my wand and say the words like there are and make the feather float.
So on one hand, it's like brought the world of witchcraft to the zeitgeist and to the population, and where people are going, okay, now we're going to talk about witchcraft.
Yeah.
In a way that's like fun and wizardy.
Yeah, whimsical.
Yeah. But on the other hand, it's like it's decredited our actual witchcraft practices.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, you think you're just like Harry Potter. You think that's
you think
a fantasy.
you can, like, fly around on a broomstick and play Quidditch and turn
Now,
into a cat.
There are people in this world who are in their 30s and 40s and still obsessing about Harry Potter.
For sure.
Because they grew up with this. It was an entire culture.
Nostalgia.
There's also people in their 50s and 60s still obsessing about Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's okay. That doesn't define the witchcraft culture.
No.
It doesn't define the Harry Potter culture either. It's just an outlier.
Yeah.
But people take those outliers and they make them like the big
Right.
thing. So,
Make it your whole personality.
yeah. That's fine.
It happens.
People also grow out of it.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw the lady who plays the herbology teacher.
Yes,
remember
I
her
saw.
She just said something, or I just saw it on TikTok or something, where she was like, I feel bad for these guys that are like still in their 30s and
Right.
obsessing. It was like a thing. You know, it was a thing that we did. Like,
We had a
grow up.
phase.
Yeah, move beyond it.
Yes.
That being said,
there are other books about witches out there. Like,
Yeah.
explore beyond the comfortable.
yeah. That being said, it was very, very empowering for a lot of people. You
Yeah.
take this kid, Harry, who's being abused by his aunt and uncle and made to live in a closet and
Right.
is shunned and, abandoned and neglected. And then he finds all this power and all this strength.
Right, and finds a place of belonging. I think for those of us that were, like, weird kids, and like I said, I didn't find it until college, but even then, those of us that felt like outcasts, feeling like we have a place to belong, it was a big thing for a lot of those sort of outlier kids to be like, oh, there are places where I can belong and I can be accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. The other concept I like in Harry Potter is the duality of like good and evil, and how is Harry is he who should not be named, aka Voldemort, because we're not afraid to say his name, is Voldemort after Harry because Harry is so good and so wonderful that he's going to defeat him, or is it because Harry's destined to really be like a negative, evil wizard?
Well, and then there's, everybody thinks Dumbledore is so great. Newsflash, Dumbledore's a bad person.
Yeah.
So once you, I feel like, dig into it a little more as a literary person, or as a, however you want to dig into it.
As an author,
As
or
an author, as a reader,
Yeah.
as somebody with a little bit more critical thinking skills than you have as an 11-year-old,
Yeah.
you start realizing there's some not so goodness in a lot of these guys.
Well, and then on the opposite, you have like Lupin, who's werewolf,
right, who's a werewolf and
stigmatized
for all of these things, and he is probably one of the most
wholesome and
good
wonderful characters.
Well, and Sirius Black too.
Yeah, same thing.
Sirius Black is maligned and is told that, or we're told that he's such a bad person.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, Prisoner. Oh, that's my favorite.
That's a good one.
That's my favorite book and my favorite movie out of the 7. But yeah, absolutely. There's so much duality in a lot of these characters that kind of gets overlooked.
Yeah.
But when you look at it through a more literary critical lens, you can go, oh, wait, I don't know if she did this on purpose, but there's
it
some...
definitely adds a complexity.
absolutely.
To it, for sure. Yeah, so we didn't mean to make this
We didn't
podcast about
mean
Harry
to
Potter,
be about
but
Harry, but it's fine.
that's fine. But it did have a really big impact.
Yeah,
on people.
absolutely, especially-
I still have people come into the shop and be like, "Oh, is this like Harry Potter?"
Right.
And I'm like, "No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Like
This is not-
this way predates. 1486 is when the
Right.
Malleus Maleficarum came out. We're
Right.
going way back beyond
Throwing
that.
it back.
Throwing it back.
Witches have been around forever.
forever.
As long as humans have been around.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true. So I do want to finish our conversation by talking about. Actually, I was gonna talk about movies, but we just don't have time
That's
to
okay.
talk about movies because we could.
We could talk about movies. There's
but
so many
We're gonna skip that.
things. But getting back to our question, specifically, I think asking about, YA and literature for young people and wanting to write stories. I think there's so much that you can look at in our history of media and of things that we consume about witches. But I think one of the biggest things for me in stories about magic is that they're engaging our curiosity, that they are making us want to know more and bringing out the innate magic within
And our imagination.
all of us. Yeah. So for me as a kid, Matilda was one of my favorite books, and we had kind of talked about Matilda a little bit earlier before we started recording, but it was one of my favorite books, one of my favorite movies, and the empowerment of a magical child
Who's also abused.
who's
And
also
neglected.
abused and neglected and discovers her magic because of that. Matilda was my favorite book as a kid. It's still one of my favorite books. It's one of my favorite movies.
Fantastic.
It's also a musical, again, throwing it back to my love of musicals. But I think for me, the magic in Matilda was was so powerful because she was just this little girl, and she discovered so much through books. Which I loved, and discovered her power because she was sort of downtrodden and was being told that she couldn't do things, and was standing up for herself and empowering her classmates who were being, pushed down by the Trunchbull, the horrible schoolmistress who was telling them that, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough because you're too little.
She's the bad witch.
Yeah, she is the bad witch.
She's the bad witch in the story.
But
She's powerful.
She is powerful in her own way. And then you have Miss Honey, who is this really nurturing
Good witch.
figure. She's
your
the good
good one.
witch. She's a good witch. She
Yeah.
also, that movie and Miss Honey, I have
Yes.
feelings.
I always wanted to run away with Miss Honey. I was
Same.
like, my parents
Like,
were fine.
Right,
But
I had a
was
very
like,
happy
I mean,
childhood.
it was fine.
But
I was like, I'll go.
I
live
too would like to
in
live
your
with Miss
cute
Honey
little
in
teacup
your little
cottage.
house, in
Yeah.
your little cottage, and with your overalls, and I just cottagecore fantasy right there. But Matilda is so much about the empowerment of the child.
Yeah.
And
Well, in the with Miss Honey, this is an
Yes.
adult who sees the child.
yes,
Who sees a child.
yes,
And sees them for the human that they are, and not the fact that they're a kid
right,
that they need to teach
No.
things to, but sees this personality and this power and this enlightenment that
Yep.
this child who's a human
right.
has.
Yeah.
And so often I think people look at kids or they talk about kids or they write about kids in this the kids did this.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know anything.
Yeah.
But kids are so powerful.
Kids are so powerful,
and they're way more in tune with their magical
their magic.
side.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why so much, circling back to fairy tales and to magical stories for children, I think that is why there are so many magical stories that are written for children, is when we're kids, we know the magic. We talk to the fairies in our backyard.
Yeah.
The veil is thinner. We're just closer to whatever that is within us and around us as children, as young people. And, as we, especially in, capitalist society, as we become more jaded and guarded and put our boundaries up for different reasons, we lose that magic and we lose touch to that magic. But I think as a writer, as a creative person, both for our letter today and for myself, I think that is a big thing, a big way that I touch into my own magic is creativity. And I think as witches, that, you know, the written word is hugely important, and something that we come back to. But I think all of it is rooted in those stories, and the stories that we tell ourselves, or the stories that we hear become the stories that we tell ourselves about life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that spell work in witchcraft and words in witchcraft are so very powerful.
Yes.
And like, so as a kid, you know, we might be trying to manifest our fairy world, or we might be trying to manifest the dragon to come out of the cave.
Right. Imagination is our first, you know, ground for manifestation.
And we believe that we can do it. Right?
Absolutely.
And like, you know, I still believe in that world that I can't see anymore because I'm too grown up to see it.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I wrote down one of my favorite, in my notes I had one of my favorite C.S. Lewis quotes. Someday you'll be old enough to start reading fairy tales again.
I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Well, in witchcraft, like what we do is we use spells, which are words.
Yes.
They're prayers. They are wishes.
Yeah.
They are poetic phrasing. They
affirmations with props.
And yes. That's an excellent way to put it.
Yes.
But we again believe in our personal power.
Yes.
We believe that we're going to say these words and we're going to manifest it into reality. The difference is that now we know reality.
Yes.
We know the constructs of reality. We know what we can manifest and what is, like, you know, I'm not going to manifest a bowl of cereal in front of my table right now, but I know that I can manifest a healthy dinner.
Yes.
I know that I can put that into words and use props. And manifest that into reality. I had a poet that was like a traveling bard that came in and he would always say, they don't call it spelling for nothing.
Exactly.
And I love that.
And well, if you look at, there's so many, you know, magic words that come back to this concept. You know, there's a lot of folk etymology behind abracadabra.
It's Hebrew.
Well, so there's not even just Hebrew. There's Aramaic, there's Latin and Greek phrases, but a lot of them come back to I create what I speak.
Yes.
And, you know, the power of words. And then if you get into other spiritual traditions, there's so much of this. The word amen.
Yes.
Is another really similar concept of like, so mote it be.
Yes.
Let it be so.
Mote it be. Yeah.
Exactly. On earth as it is in heaven, as above, so below.
Yes.
You know, there's so many of these phrases that are so ingrained in different spiritual traditions that really come back to like, my words have power.
Yes.
And my words are creating my will.
Yes.
Or the will of my deity or whatever.
Or have power beyond what we're even conceiving.
Yeah, that we even know.
So I wanted to talk briefly about Dr. Masaru Emoto. Yes. And so just like, this is a concept I use in my Witch 101 classes. It's a concept I use with kids. I literally just sent a video of Dr. Emoto to my kids' 3rd grade class.
Yeah,
because they were just talking about bullying.
Yep, I've used it in teaching when I was teaching elementary school in talking about social emotional learning and how we talk to one another.
Yep, it's so powerful.
Okay, so explain what it is for those that don't know.
So Dr. Emoto, I believe it was in the 80s, did this like experiment where he would talk to water. He had multiple jars of water, and he, a lot of things that I saw said just like Tokyo tap water. It's just straight up tap water. And he would talk to the water, and he would say things to like a vial, and he would say, I love you, you're beautiful. He would say things to another one that was like, you're fantastic and you're lucky. And then he would talk to a couple other bottles and he'd say, you're horrible and you're ugly and you're evil and I hate you.
Yes.
And then he would talk to another one that said, you're dead to me. You know, like he would say like all these vile things to these 2 containers. And then he would say really positive, really beautiful things to these 2 containers. Then he took those samples from each water, he froze them and put them in a microscope, and he looked at the formations of crystals that formed with each droplet of water. Yeah. With the I love you, you're beautiful, you're fantastic, you're good luck. Those formations were intricate, they were beautiful, they're poetic in their formations, like they're just so gorgeous. And the ones that are you're evil, you're dead to me, I hate you, they didn't even form proper structure. Yeah. they were muddled and
Disjointed.
disjointed, and they didn't work. Like it didn't even look like they were frozen crystals.
Right. You don't see the pattern and the intricacy in those ones.
Yes, it's just gross.
Yeah.
Like they look gross to me.
It just looks sad.
He also continued his experiment by doing rice. He would take rice, like rice and water, and he would say, "I love you, you're beautiful, you're awesome," to one vial, and then the other one he would do the same. He would say, "You're ugly, you're terrible, you're awful,
evil."
I hope you
Yep.
die." Right? And so the water and rice that he said nice things to fermented, which is what we get sake out of.
Oh.
Yeah. So nice fermentation.
Yeah, delicious.
And then on the other side, it would mold and it just became rotten. And I love that because over
Yes.
time you can really see what the effects do to both of those containers.
Just the power of words.
People do it with plants.
Yes.
Too. People have done this experiment with plants. They'll say, "I love you, you're wonderful" to one plant, and it'll grow and it'll blossom and it'll be
so
huge.
happy.
And then the other one, there's like, "You're terrible, I hate you," and it'll die.
Yeah.
It will straight up die.
Right.
So consider this concept. We are all 70%
There's so much water in your body.
There's so much water in our body. There's so much water on our planet. Our
Yes.
planet is 70% water. Is there a juxtaposition between the fact that our bodies are 70% water and our planet is as well? Maybe. But what I know is that how we talk to each other really matters.
Absolutely.
And how we talk to ourselves really matters. How what you say to yourself really matters. If you wake up in the morning and you're like, "You're ugly and I'm going to have a shitty day," guess
Right.
what?
You're
You're going
gonna
to
be a bad day.
That's
my
what you
friend.
said. You manifested that into
Right,
reality.
exactly.
If you look in the mirror and say, even if you're not feeling it,
Right. You just have to like fake it till you make it, baby.
yeah. If you say you're gonna have a good day today, if you tell yourself, "I'm gonna manifest a good day
You're
today,"
like, you look hot.
You look hot. You don't believe it? That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Just
you're
keep
hot
saying
today.
it.
Your body is your body, and
Yes.
it's the temple, and it is precious.
Yes.
Just put it out there. The other thing I talk about is words to other people. Right?
Yes.
And what you say matters.
Absolutely. You know, there's the sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me.
That's
Bullshit.
Because they do. They do
They
hurt.
do hurt. Yes. Yeah. That is. Yeah. It could be used as a spell to
Yeah.
be like, I'm gonna let these words,
Not hurt
me.
Yeah, because you could use it.
I am rubber
the same
and you are
with
glue.
whatever you say bounces
Bounces
off me and sticks to you. That's a spell.
That is a spell. That is like whatever you say comes back to you threefold, or
Yeah.
whatever you do comes back to you threefold.
100%.
That, like those are 100% children's rhymes that turned into, or spells that turned into children's rhymes.
So
but,
as an adult, I
yeah,
use that.
absolutely.
And so one of my biggest things, my guilty issue is road rage.
Oof,
and so
yeah.
especially, I live in Traverse City. They have
So
5
much
miles blocked off of construction
road
right now.
construction.
There's potholes. There's tourists who love to see our beautiful bay,
yeah,
but they're
we're
rubbernecking. Also at the
excited.
like half naked volleyball players on the beach. I get it. I get
Me
it.
too, girl. Me too.
But also drive because I need to go where I
I
need
have
to go.
places to be. I live here. I need to get to work.
Thank you for being here. We enjoy your economy.
Right, we
and what you bring to
appreciate
our
your
economy,
support.
but also just drive.
But like we gotta get places.
So I get road rage, and so I could say, like, "Damn it! Like, get out of my
Yes.
way!" I could scream, I could yell, I
Yeah.
could be like, I could throw on my horn, I could do all these things. But what does that do? That doesn't help anybody.
Right, that energy is not.
And also, I don't know
productive.
this person.
Right.
I don't know what they're going through. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they have to poop. You don't know.
Everybody
you don't know what
poops.
you don't know what's going on with them. So what I find is that I want to send them a good message, but I'm
Yes.
still angry, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always like, I hope you get to where you need to go safely. Damn it! Like, I hope you get there, but I'm angry. But I'm also,
Right.
but I also
But
hope
I
you get.
wish you well.
so I found a way to like utilize that cathartic, like, I'm angry and I need to be angry
Yes.
right now, with the also I'm sending you a positive message, and I hope that I get to where I need to go
Yes.
safely. I hope you get to where you need to go safely. I hope the people around you are also safe in your sporadic driving.
Yeah.
So
Your
it's like
chaos.
I and so I've found a way to modify what I say in a way that works well for me.
Yeah.
My kids laugh because I'm always like,
I hope you're having a good time.
but it's really powerful, and what you say is powerful. Your words are powerful. What you write is powerful.
Yes.
I mean, how cathartic is it when you're feeling so awful and so terrible that you
Yeah.
just write all those feelings out?
That is how I've come up with a lot of the, spell work that I've done personally. I mentioned earlier the sort of spiritual community that I was a part of that has shaped a lot of things for the last couple of years. One of the kind of spellcraft techniques that I learned in that community was to do a brain dump, I think we would sort of call it, and write it all out and just get all of those, feelings out about whatever you were trying to manifest or bind or whatever you were trying to deal with in this spell work, and to just write it all out. And then to find the sort of phrase that encapsulates all of that. And then again, affirmation with props, find the appropriate tools that work for you and use that affirmation in a spell. And I think that is an exercise that I've come back to over and over again in my personal practice is, the power of the written word and just, getting it all out. Or, as a poet, like that's also something that I do as well. And then coming back also to like the words of others, using the written word of other people is also really powerful.
Yeah.
And then there's the sort of communal spells that, you can use because words have power, and, everybody using the same words is really powerful.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's making me think of the Bible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like, here's the sacred text,
Yeah.
right? Which wasn't written by Jesus.
No.
I don't know if anybody knows that.
Fun
But
fact.
Jesus did not write the Bible.
Written by a bunch of...
Jesus is a really cool dude.
Jesus is great. Big fan.
Yeah. Big fan.
Big fan.
But
Not an author.
not an author. Nope.
Had too much other stuff going on.
Nope. He told stories.
Yeah.
People wrote down his
Yes.
stories, which is wonderful.
Which is what a lot of scripture is passed down oral tradition
Yeah.
that eventually got written down when people figured out how to write.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is also a tool that was used for politics and to omit books of the Bible,
Yep.
which the Church of Satan picked up most of those.
Yeah. There's a whole
And
other
omit
podcast
books of the
there.
Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Omitted books of the Bible that had to deal with women who were powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
They omitted books of, like, there's so many books of, like things
the
that...
mysticism and,
Yes.
and the magic, a lot of that was
Yeah,
pulled
the
out.
Book of Enoch. And,
Right.
like, there's so many books that were just taken out.
Right.
And people, like... and
And that's true of not only the Bible, but other sacred texts as well.
Yep,
in other
100%.
spiritual traditions.
And so it was because everybody was reading this book. The
Right.
book of the Bible, or the Bible, is one of the most republished
yeah.
and retranslated books of all time. But then you have books that have just come out, like the Gen Z Bible. Have you seen the Gen Z Bible?
No.
So it's like Jesus was hella tight, and he was like up to Mary, and Mary was like, "Yo, what's up?" And it's like, and all the Gen Zers are like, "That's not
how we speak.
But it is, and it's like it. And I've heard like preachers use this Bible,
Yeah.
and I cannot wait to own my own copy because
sounds
it is iconic,
wild.
and
Yeah.
it is going to be. It's how we change. It's not the
Right.
King James version anymore. It's the Gen Z version.
love it.
That's the one that's getting through to people.
That's it.
And so people are reading the Bible again
Right.
because they're reading the Gen Z
They're
version
like,
of the
this
Bible.
is funny.
Yes, yes, but what's been added to that? What's
Right.
been taken out of that? What perspectives are going to change by
Right.
changing the language and changing the dialogue?
Right. Well, and when we talk about translation like that, there's a whole other kettle of fish where, the way that things are translated supports different political opinions and different things. And
puts some people in power and
Yes,
puts some people under that level of power.
Exactly. So there's, the way that things have been translated over the years has changed so much in our perception of the stories that are told in scripture.
So the phrasing in the Bible that so many Christians fall back on.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Yes. Yes. That wasn't added until the 1600s.
Yeah.
1600s.
Yep.
That wasn't even in the Bible. Jesus didn't write that.
Yeah, no, it's in the Old Testament.
Jesus didn't write anything in the Bible. But yeah, that was added
Yep.
in to support books like the Malleus Maleficarum.
Mhm.
That's ridiculous.
Messed up.
So, as much as I find the words and phrasing in the Bible, the Quran, and other sacred texts
Right.
to be very powerful and very moving, very influential,
Yeah.
I cannot follow this book verbatim.
No, and
Right?
because it's written by humans and humans are fallible.
Absolutely.
Like none of this is perfect.
Which is why I always encourage everybody to read and reread. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge
Gain
is
your own
power.
perspectives. I say this all the time. Be your own person.
Right.
Walk your own path in paganism.
Yes.
You get to choose what works well for you and what
Right.
doesn't work well for you.
Take what works and leave the rest.
Yes. I believe in Christ consciousness. I believe in being good to your neighbor. I believe in a collective consciousness and basic morals and values, but I don't follow the Bible verbatim.
No, not
and
at
I
all.
don't follow any religion verbatim.
No, I think for a lot of, people, those of us that call ourselves witches, we pull from so many different traditions. We pull from, different pagan traditions. We pull from Christianity. We pull from Islam. We pull from Judaism, mysticism. There's so many different things that inform our practice. Indigenous religions. There's so many things that can inform our spiritual practice, and it's okay to, again, take what works and leave the rest. As long as you're doing it with respect
and honor,
and honoring, where
appreciation versus
where
appropriation.
exactly honoring where those things come from. But yeah, it's just cultivating the practice that works for you.
Yep.
And that fits with your spirit,
And
and letting it be an ever-changing, ever-growing thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's what writing practices are.
Yeah.
You have a rough draft, and then you have your first
and you
draft,
edit,
and then you edit, and then you edit, and you edit.
So much of writing is editing.
Yes. And going back and re-reviewing. So,
Yes.
So often I find, especially nowadays, it's like, that's how it has to be. Like, that's, there's so many topics out there that's like, it's this way, no other way.
It's
and
all
you're
black and
wrong
white.
if you do that. And so it's like, and we've been talking about this in the shop and consistently, that's not progress.
No.
It's not progress when you say it's my way or no other way.
Yes.
And I'm talking about liberal, conservative, whatever that might be.
No matter what it is.
The progress comes from dialogue and conversation and writing.
And words.
It's so amazing. So this is us saying words are really powerful.
Words are powerful. Talk to your neighbors. Read good books.
Yes.
Read with a critical eye.
Yes,
read with a critical mind, critical heart, critical eye. Read more fairy tales. Read more magic books.
Yeah, you are magical.
You are magical.
Remember that.
Find your own magic.
Yeah, you are capable of manifesting. You are capable of doing great, great things. Yes. You are capable of changing somebody's entire world by just a single thing that you say to that person. Be nice. Don't be a dick.
Be kind to your neighbors.
Be nice to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be a dick. That is the entire.
I had a nurse that I worked for in the ER here, and he'd be like, "All right, guys, that's it. Go out there, be your best person, and don't be a dick."
Yes.
Like every day he would say that, and I was like, that was fuel for me. He said that every single night, and every single night I was like, I'm gonna go be a good person, and I'm not gonna be a dick to people.
Exactly.
That's it. Let's go with that, guys.
Do no harm, take no shit.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
It's another one of my favorite ones.
So powerful. We could talk about this for days, but unfortunately we are out of time.
That's okay. Just
Chelsea,
be kind to one another, friends.
Be kind to one another. I love it. Chelsea, you're really easy to talk to.
So are you.
And I love it.
I love it. So good.
It's maybe because we think words are so powerful.
It's because we like to talk. It's also because I'm a Gemini rising.
That is. I see.
An air sign.
If people wanted to find you, would you want them to find you on Instagram or social media?
If you want to see a lot of pictures of my pet hedgehog, sure.
I do.
So my Instagram is Ms. Chelsea Rene, MSCHELSEARENE. And that is, the easiest place to find me and find out what I'm up to.
On Instagram?
On Instagram, yes. Sorry. That is the Instagram. I don't really use a lot of other socials.
That's fair.
But that is the place on the Instagram to find me. And you can find me here at Dead Poet Society and also teaching Creative Chaos if you want to talk more about creative practice as witchcraft or as spiritual practice more so. Come take a class with me.
Yeah, so we teach Creative Chaos here in the class or in the shop. Actually in our room upstairs, but we teach a kids version and an adult version. And it's taking art. And you don't have to be good at art.
No.
Did you know that you don't have to be good at art?
You don't have to be good at art.
I love your little singing. That's awesome.
I'm just going to come up with a little jingle. We love a jingle.
You don't have to be good at art.
Yep. No, but we started the class with a lot of affirmations and, getting into, in terms of creativity as a spiritual practice, letting go of your inhibitions and getting back to that sort of child self and the wildness and the belief in a lot of things.
Yeah, not being too self-critical.
Not being too self-critical.
You don't have to be good at art. Just go do art.
Just
do
be
art. Creative.
Just put creativity.
You're not a bad artist.
Let the divine within you, manifest itself in the form of a collage or a painting or whatever medium we're working with that day.
It just has to be moving to you.
Yeah.
And art is subjective anyway.
Yes.
Like,
art
there's
doesn't have to
tons
be
of
pretty.
art out there that I don't love.
That I think is not cute.
But there's tons of, and what I love might be something that you hate.
Absolutely.
And, and vice versa. And that's totally okay. It's completely subjective. Just be creative.
Just, let the divine within you and the magic within you make stuff.
It's powerful.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So we do that for adults and kids.
Yes. Come.
The adult version is a little bit more like, how are we going to heal our childhood trauma with art?
And then the kid version is maybe we can prevent some of that childhood trauma by creating resilience and having joy.
Yes. And making art.
And making art.
Yes. So that is here in the shop. You can find all of our classes listed on our website at blessedbt.com. And that's where you can book classes with Chelsea. Please come to Dead Poet Society.
Yes, that's the other place you'll find me.
Favorite thing. It is really
best.
it's like my therapy because it's like
so good.
I just I feel safe. I feel like I can share. I feel like I can write my own poetry and share my own poetry.
We just had one this past weekend. That was so good.
It was amazing. And we had two randos off the street that came in that heard about it and showed up, and they're their own poets. And
we love a rando.
Amazing. I mean, we love the traveling bards.
Please be our next rando off the street.
Please be our next rando. It's we just go around in a circle. We just all read poetry, and it could be our own poetry. It could be poets from poetry from poets dead or alive.
Yes.
We just ask that you give them credit and
sharing the power of the written word. Man.
Yeah, there's something powerful about being able to orate or speak these poems into reality. The beat behind them, the tonality behind them is just so powerful.
Yeah, I read one of my poems aloud for the first time this past weekend, and it was I was almost in tears because it was just really powerful to get to speak that aloud.
Yes, it is. It's amazing. There's poems that I can't even finish reading because I'm just crying so hard.
Oh gosh, all the time.
While I'm reading them, it's just and they're they cuss and they swear and they talk about our bodies and politics and all these different things. And this is a safe place for expression.
Yes,
to hear those things and to talk about those things and to let those things sink in. So Dead Poet Society,
soak up all the good energy
every second Saturday of the month at 6:00.
Yeah, come
right here at the shop. It's free. Just come hang out.
Come hang out. Listen to poems. Read poems.
Yeah, and honestly, any kind of performative art is welcome.
Yeah. Spoken word.
Yeah,
songs.
Yeah, you wanna break out a dance or play the guitar? I don't care. Whatever you want to do. Open mic. Come and be creative.
Come hang.
Yeah. All right.
It's wild.
Chelsea, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Bellamy.
This was a pleasure.
It was magical.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's do it again sometime.
Yes, please.
Okay.
And actually, we didn't even talk about movies or other things.
Oh my God, there's so many more things we could talk about.
Talking.
And we could talk about art and so many things.
Yeah, which is great because I need to do a season 2 at some point. So.
We'll see you back here next time.
We'll see you. This is Ask a Witch. If you want to send in a listener question, please send one in via snail mail, which is my favorite, to directly to the shop. Your written word is very powerful. It is actually the fuel of this entire podcast is your letters. So send a letter right to the shop at 116 East Front Street. We are the South Suite. Traverse City, Michigan. That's where I live. Traverse City, Michigan, 49684. You can send me an email, which is just as good, to bellamyblack333@gmail.com. We are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. You can find our handles and all those channels down in our show notes, as well as our email and our address. But send us stuff. We want to hear from you. Your questions and your curiosity keep us alive. So please send those in. Even if you just have things to say, we want to hear those things too.
Comments, questions,
all the things.
All the things.
Yes. Fan mail about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Or whatever. That's fine.
Hate mail.
That's fine too.
I mean, please don't send hate mail.
Not hate mail.
We love you.
But we get it.
Be kind.
We get it. So this has been Ask a Witch. I'm Bellamy Black. This is Chelsea. Thank you so much for being here. Before we conclude our episode, we want to talk to you about our feature business of the day, Charles and Reed Detroit-style pizza. These guys are no squares, but their pizzas are. Expertly baked in square pans and topped with a thick layer of rich sauce. Oh, and you gotta try their subs, salads, and specialty items. They are amazing. Located in the alleyway between Front and State Street, downtown Traverse City, Michigan. Order food to go or stop by for a beer and have a go at the bubble hockey table. Dan and the crew at Charles and Reed have been huge supporters of Blessed Be and Ask a Witch since day one. They are a small family-run business just living the dream of gifting the world with great pizza. Stop in and grab a slice today. 113 East Front Street, Traverse City, Michigan. Check our show notes for more details. Thank you, Charles and Reed, for your support.
This has been Ask a Witch with Bellamy Black, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. We have a strong presence on the World Wide Web. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Check out our live recordings on our YouTube channel at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Handles are listed in the show notes. For a chance to meet Bellamy in person, visit Blessed Be Tea and Apothecary in Traverse City, Michigan.